Which Ben got the better aliens in their Omnitrix? It's been a debate as old as time. Since Ben got the new 10 in Alien Force, comparisons have always been made between each alien. But did maturing give Ben better transformations? Or did the Omnitrix fix a problem that never existed? On December 27, 2005, Ben Tennyson received for the very first time the life-changing device known as the Omnitrix. The watch gave him the ability to transform himself into a super-powered monster.
He's not a monster. He's an alien.
It came with a few diverse aliens, which were his starting 10. Forearms, Upgrade, Stinkfly, Grey Matter, Heat Blast, Diamond Head, Ripjaws, Ghost Freak, Wildmutt, and Accelerate. These aliens are some of the most iconic members of the franchise, not only in superpowers, but in multi-generational merchandising. A fun fact to note is that Cannonbolt was actually going to be a part of the original 10, but ended up being swapped out for Diamond Head. He does, however, end up becoming a replacement for Ghost Freak in the Omnitrix after the Purple Poltergeist escaped. But about 3 years later, on April 18, 2008, Ben underwent a huge change. He got 5 years older. Gwen's magic changed color, and the main character got a whole new list of 10 aliens.
I don't recognize any of these guys.
This new roster gave birth to a new list of icons for the Ben 10 franchise, and they forever changed the show as well, bringing in new powers and new designs to Ben's wrist, and a new set of problems as well. But what caused this change of aliens between the two series in the first place? Well, the Omnitrix in the first series got a default playlist of 10 aliens, each being unique and different in their skill sets, size, and designs. This was what the creator of the watch, Azimuth, set as the default set of aliens for the prototype version of the Omnitrix. After Ben took it off in the mysterious period between Classic and Alien Force, the watch lay dormant for about 5 years. However, the DNA collection process didn't. You see, the alien species for the Omnitrix are always being scanned and surveyed, and added to the watch, increasing the size of the catalog. This is done through the use of these alien mosquito drones that collects the DNA and stores that DNA at the planet-sized databank known as Primus. So as that continued to update the Omnitrix, it created a new playlist of 10 for Ben. And when he donned the watch again in the first episode of Alien Force, it updated for the first time ever, giving Ben a brand new playlist to use. From a production perspective, we can clearly see that between Classic and Alien Force, the show underwent quite an overhaul. Being headed by the now late Dwayne McDuffie, his vision for Alien Force was a lot more mysterious, darker, and grittier, and a new playlist of aliens would only be suitable in fitting this outlook on the show. So in order to keep the series fresh and evolving, there needed to be a change. But does changing the aliens actually improve anything? Or was the old playlist already perfect? We can evaluate this using these 3 points, which are grading the designs, utility and versatility, and lastly, scaling and power level of these aliens, which we'll be having our expert Ty Learned break down. Starting with Classic, which had Dave Johnson be the genius that gave us the starting 10 aliens. Meanwhile, in Alien Force, the designs were handled by the genius Glenn Murakami, who gave each alien their own distinct look and feel for an older version of Ben Tennyson. Of course, a lot of design philosophy goes into creating multi-generational iconic characters like these, but I think the best principle to bring across that is shape language. This is a basic design principle of using shapes to convey feelings of emotion, meaning, and personality without having to directly say it. These 3 basic shapes demonstrate how shape language is used in illustration and animation, where circles are soft and approachable, squares are solid and strong, and triangles are dynamic, dangerous, and sometimes unpredictable. Combining these shapes into a design is what makes it more interesting and realistic. 2 aliens that come to mind that demonstrate a good use of this principle are Humongousaur Forearms. Both are large, sturdy squares that for both Bens are the reliable, strong aliens that are a must-use when he's in a bind. The shape psychology makes them pretty easy to read and understand from a purely visual perspective. Big Strong Dino Boy and Big Strong Red Boy. It becomes more complicated as the designs iterate though, as we can see a difference with Goop and Upgrade, where both are lanky organisms that are constructed mostly with ovals, to show the soft and approachable nature of these transformations. However, their relaxed body shape definitely forms a triangle, which is used to capture that dynamicism. It shows that these aliens are more versed than simple figures and can do a lot more than what meets the eye, with Upgrade being a tech-controlling bundle of nano slime and Goop just being... However, we do see the mold get broken even more with this comparison here between Diamond Head and Chroma Stone. See how Diamond Head is obviously a square and a few rectangles, being a sturdy crystal guy. You can probably assume that he is one of the strong ones, but Chroma Stone breaks that rule. Being forged of squares as well, with a slender figure, sort of screams more fragility. And with use of upside down triangles as well in his design, it says that he is more of a dynamic rock than a sturdy diamond. But this is where my biases start to show, as this sort of conflicts with the simplicity of the design, and it makes the powers for the Alien Force aliens more challenging to identify for a super casual viewer. I decided to ask my girlfriend about the more complex Alien Force designs to prove my theory. She came relatively close to nailing the exact powers of each of these aliens, but she was still pretty far off from nailing the exact abilities of what these aliens did. I mean, she thought Chroma Stone had super strength only, when I guess he sorta does, but that isn't exactly what this design conveys, and it sure as hell is far from what he does. It still doesn't change the fact that Classic nailed this aspect of having better designs, because I decided to ask her about the most unclear design, which was probably Upgrade, and she called him a flexible robot penguin, so I know for sure Dave Johnson would be taking the W on these designs. I think also another factor that does make the classic designs more appealing is nostalgia. Most casual fans would be more familiar with the classic designs than the designs from Alien Force, and this shows with how many of the classic aliens made further iterations into other shows. Aliens like Forearms and Diamond Head being in every iteration of the show without much of a design change does show that these aliens stuck with the audience for much longer. This does give the win to Classic, having 1 point over Alien Force. Now, beyond just having cool designs, the utility and versatility of these aliens is also very important. I think especially as a superhero, having a diverse set of skills is just as important as not wearing your underwear on the outside of your costume. Take for example, Batman and his utility belt, having a solution for every problem, or even Superman with his 6 different superpowers. Having versatility in your abilities is the make or break factor between life and death of innocent bystanders. Ben Tennyson isn't short of variety in his Omnitrix, as he has an alien suitable for every situation, regardless of the Omnitrix that he has. Need a flyer? We got you. Need a guy with fire powers? We got you. Need a guy with super strength? We have those in spades. This is one of the main reasons why the Omnitrix is appealing in the first place. But the design principles of shape psychology are very telling in regards to the aliens that are very versed. Take for example, 2 major icons of the respective Omnitrixes, Heat Blast and Swampfire. Both are the respective fire guys of their watches, but a major difference is that Swampfire has 1 more superpower than Heat Blast, which is his ability to manipulate plants. This gives Ben Swampfire more options in combat when it comes to fighting. While Heat Blast does possess the power of flight and Fire Blasts, Swampfire's list grows even longer, being able to trap enemies, regenerate from lethal damage, and also create plants that give him the home field advantage basically all the time, sort of like Rillaboom's grassy terrain. This sort of gap in utility becomes wider with each alien that we compare, with one of the most basic comparisons being between Jetray and Accelerate. While Accelerate is still the fastest alien on land, Jetray is able to do far more until it becomes unfunny. He can fly, shoot lasers, breathe underwater, he has super strength, and hyperspace travel. This kind of versatility leaves aliens like Accelerate in the dust of irrelevance, and it only gets worse once we compare even more, because classic aliens for Ben are a lot more one note, are more of specialists in their main skills. Take for example Ripjaws, he's the swimming guy and he's only the swimming guy. Grey Matter is the smart guy and only that. He does have a niche skill in being small, but outside of that he genuinely is useless. Hence this would give Alien Force the edge in a band for band battle about who can do more. But a great way to measure what an alien can do is through their power level and scaling. So let's hear what Ty Learned thinks.
When it comes to comparing the two rosters, it's actually not as simple to break down than you may think. For comparison, we will start off with the most iconic matchup, that being Heat Blast versus Swampfire. The problem with Heat Blast is, past the original series, he rarely ever gets used, but he does have a feat on stalling Dagon Vilgax, I guess, and also scaling to Victor. Meanwhile, Swampfire has been consistently portrayed to be one of Ben's physically strongest aliens, taking down the likes of Vilgax, stalling Agrigor at one point, and he has statements implying he's even superior. I think another issue as well is that Swampfire in Omniverse gets a lot stronger as well, unlike Heat Blast, who kind of stays stagnant. Swampfire went from getting overwhelmed by a bunch of other Swampfires to now one-shotting those same guys. So if the gap with Swampfire and Heat Blast was already big to begin with, Swampfire more than likely made up for it by the time of Omniverse rolling around due to blooming. Swampfire as well has much more versatility, having vines that can restrain his enemies, regeneration, seed bombs, and even sleep gas. Heat Blast has better control over the element of fire, and in terms of raw firepower, he's probably stronger than Swampfire, but this is the only category I can say Heat Blast has over Swampfire. As far as the physical beasts of the Omnitrix goes, when it comes to physical strength, Humungosaur has multiple statements implying he's the strongest alien within both Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, which would imply that he's superior to the likes of Forearms, and when it comes to comparing their feats, I think Humungosaur definitely has better feats than Forearms as well. However, what keeps Forearms from being counted out here is his statements of being stronger within Omniverse, and obviously he has access to Humungosaur at the time. Though at the same time, this seems to be contradicted when Ben has access to Forearms already, yet within Season 1 of Omniverse, he kept insisting on using Humungosaur to get the job done, implying Humungosaur is more effective than Forearms. Now, I think with statements you can argue for Forearms, and a case definitely can be made for him, but consistently Humungosaur has just been portrayed to be Ben's most physically effective alien. However, speed is just as important as power, which leads us into the next matchup, that being Accelerate versus Jetray. Now, when comparing not only their feats in speed, but also overall performance, Jetray is just better, bro. Accelerate's best speed feat is him moving so fast that it looked like he froze time. However, this feat was only calculated to be around massively hypersonic, a level of speed that even Ben's slower aliens can replicate. We also have him evading Hex's Light as a kid and dodging Eon and Malware's attacks. However, these aren't really feats Jetray can't upscale from, as we literally saw him quite literally traveling through hyperspace, meaning bare minimum he had been moving beyond the speed of light to travel through this space. He's also just tussled with Ultimate Kevin, which is better than anything Accelerate has accomplished in my opinion. And Accelerate's whole thing is that he attacks with his speed. He does have sharp claws that could be deadly to Jetray, but aside from that, he has no way of trying to get to Jetray other than moving in a circle and trying to make a tornado, which Jetray can easily stop by just shooting a laser at him. And lastly, for our big matchups, we have Diamond Head versus Chromastone. Diamond Head is the MVP alien of the OGs without a doubt, and we actually have scaling between the two that seems pretty straightforward. Chromastone in Season 3 of Alien Force nearly died to Vilgax. Diamond Head then proceeded to destroy Vilgax after Chromastone was destroyed, therefore Diamond Head should be stronger than him, right? However, I don't think it's that simple, due to Chromastone later on in Ultimate Alien being able to absorb energy from a much stronger Vilgax and attack Dagon, while Diamond Head goes on to somewhat combat Malgax, which is an inferior version of the Dagon one. This is probably the closest matchups, as there's an argument for both sides, but I would still give it to Chromastone at the end of the day, due to the fact that he can utilize lasers, which is something that can weaken Diamond Head. And he also has other abilities that Diamond Head can't really counteract, like flying and regeneration. He can like throw crystal projectiles, but I mean Chromastone can easily just evade those. He also has the ability to absorb energy, which is probably just going to be a lot for Diamond Head to handle all at once. And if they were to fight in close range, maybe Diamond Head could win, but Chromastone playing the long distance game should allow him to beat Diamond Head. And as far as other matchups, I think you guys are starting to see a pattern here. Brainstorm not only is someone who sees throughout all possibilities, but can actually fight unlike Gray Matter, so he would be more effective. Big Chill can quite literally freeze the entire Null Void phase through opponents and has a bunch of hacks, while Stinkfly can shoot gunk that makes decently large craters, I guess. It's just really not a fair comparison. The only other alien I can really mention here that stands a chance against the Alien Force roster is Cannonball, who unironically does still stand as one of Ben's strongest aliens. However, he isn't a part of the original 10, so we can't use him as a comparison. So in my opinion, I think the Alien Force roster is just kind of a better version of the original. And thank you once again, Gray Matter Fanboy, for letting me on the channel.
Thanks for summing that up, Tyler. And so, there you guys have it. The better starting 10 officially belongs to Ben from Alien Force, without a shadow of a doubt. But it doesn't mean the classic Omnitrix is useless, and the only way to prove it is by testing it against a great planetary threat. Could Ben Tennyson actually stop Conquest? Because if an evil gray-haired Superman arrives on